11 moves, 1 queen sacrifice, and a finish so clean it became immortal. Today we're in Banja Luka, Yugoslavia in 1931, and Alexander Alekhine is giving a simultaneous exhibition against 35 opponents. On one of those boards against Vasic, he creates one of the most famous miniatures in chess history. This game is often called the Vasic pickle, and once you see the finish, you'll understand exactly why. White begins with the king's pawn to e4. Black answers with e6, choosing the French defense. White pushes d4, claiming more space in the center, and black replies with d5, challenging that center immediately. Then white develops the knight to c3, and black pins it with the bishop to b4. So right away we are in the Winawer variation of the French defense. This is a fighting opening. Black is often happy to give up the bishop for the knight, damage white's pawn structure, and then try to hit the center later. Alekhine continues with bishop to d3, a very natural move. The bishop develops, supports the center, and starts looking toward the kingside. Black now goes bishop takes c3 check. That is the standard Winawer idea. Black gives up the bishop pair, but in return tries to damage white's pawns. White recaptures with the b-pawn. So yes, white's structure is a little messy now. But in return, white has the bishop pair, extra central control, and active possibilities. Now black plays h6. This is the first move that feels a little too quiet. It's not a losing move by itself. But in this kind of position, black really wants development and central counterplay. Instead, this pawn move spends a tempo without solving any urgent problem. Alekhine responds with bishop to a3, a very elegant move. The bishop becomes active on the long diagonal, black's king starts to feel less comfortable in the center, and white's pieces begin to coordinate around the dark squares. Black develops with knight to d7. Again, a reasonable looking move, but still a little slow. Black is developing, yes, but not really fighting back in the center yet. Alekhine now brings the queen to e2, very logical. The queen supports the center, connects white's pieces, and quietly starts eyeing the e6 pawn. Only now does black strike in the middle with pawn takes e4. Alekhine recaptures with bishop takes e4. That bishop lands beautifully in the center. It's active, it's balanced, and it keeps pressure on black's position. Black develops the other knight to f6, attacking the bishop, and Alekhine calmly retreats the bishop to d3. That retreat matters. The bishop on d3 points straight toward the kingside. The queen is already on e2. The other bishop is active on a3, and black's king is still sitting in the center. Nothing has exploded yet, but all the attacking pieces are starting to line up. Now black plays b6. At first glance this looks completely normal, just a developing move. Black wants to bring the bishop out and finally get organized. But this is the critical moment. Black needed something more urgent here. A move like c5 would at least challenge the center immediately and fight for activity. But b6 is too slow, and Alekhine sees it instantly. He plays queen takes e6 check, a stunning queen sacrifice. The queen dives right into black's position, captures the pawn on e6 and checks the king. This is the moment that made the game famous, because if you're seeing this for the first time, it almost looks impossible. White is giving up the queen so early, yet the attack works completely. In the game, black accepts the queen with the f-pawn. Pawn takes e6, and that is exactly what Alekhine wanted, because the pawn has moved away from f7. That one detail changes everything. Before the capture, the f7 pawn was blocking the diagonal. After the capture, that diagonal is open, and now Alekhine delivers the final move, bishop to g6. Checkmate, what a finish. The bishop from d3 lands on g6, and now it attacks the king on e8 through the newly opened diagonal. The black king has no escape. It cannot go to e7 because the bishop on a3 controls that square. It cannot go to f8 because that same bishop on a3 controls f8 as well. It cannot go to d7 because its own knight is sitting there. It cannot go to d8 because its own queen blocks that square, and there is no useful way to block the attack. The king is trapped in the center, surrounded by its own pieces, and white's bishops finish the job with perfect coordination. That is why this game is remembered, not just because it is short, not just because of the queen sacrifice, but because every move in the attack connects so cleanly. White develops, black loses a little time. White improves the bishop. The queen centralizes, the bishop steps back to the perfect square. Black makes one natural-looking move too many, and then suddenly, it's over. Also, one very instructive detail here. After queen takes e6 check, black chose pawn takes e6 in the game. But even trying to block with queen to e7 would not save the position. White would simply take that queen on e7, and it would be mate there as well. So by the time the queen sacrifice appears on the board, black's position is already beyond repair. That's what makes the combination so powerful. If you want the lesson from this game, it's a big one. In sharp positions, you cannot afford slow moves when your king is still in the center. A move like h6 may look harmless. A move like b6 may look natural. But if your opponent has active bishops, a centralized queen, and better coordination, those normal moves can become the exact moment the position collapses. Alekhine didn't rush. He built the attack step by step. And when the moment arrived, he finished it with complete precision. Alexander Alekhine vs. Vasic, Banja Luka 1931, a simultaneous exhibition game, 11 moves, 1 queen sacrifice and 1 immortal checkmate. That is the Vasic pickle.